The gravel crunched under the tires of Ethan Caldwell's Chevy Silverado as he turned into the driveway, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dashboard. The familiar rumble of the engine was a quiet comfort, mingling with the faint scent of worn leather and a hint of cherry lip balm, her favorite. A trace of her morning ride still lingered by the air vent. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile, a fleeting moment of calm. He cut the engine, and the world stilled, save for the sharp bark of their German shepherd, Max, pacing the porch. Leah sat on the steps, one hand cradling her 8-month pregnant belly, the other tugging Max's collar to keep him from lunging at a battered delivery box by the door. She looked exhausted but steady, her eyes catching Ethan's with a tired grin. "If that driver leaves another package in the sun, I'm shipping it back to the warehouse myself," she called, brushing hair from her face. Ethan chuckled and stepped out, his boots hitting the ground with a solid thump. "I'll handle it." But Max growled low, hackles rising, and Ethan's hand froze on the truck door. A voice sliced through the air, sharp and commanding, not a neighbor's. "Hey, who are you?" Ethan spun, heart kicking hard. A dented gray sedan screeched to the curb, no plates, just a cheap yellow light blinking on its roof. Two men spilled out, dressed in mismatched uniforms, no patches, no name tags. One gripped a stick wrapped in duct tape. The other wore a flimsy Velcro badge that read, "How enforcement?" Ethan's gut twisted. "Get inside," the skinny one barked, pointing at the house. "Your dog's unleashed. You're violating noise ordinances." Leah stood, confusion flashing across her face, one hand shielding her belly. Max's snarl deepened, rumbling from deep in his chest. Ethan stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Who sent you?" The bigger man sneered, tapping the duct-taped stick against his palm. "This is your warning. Next time, we bring a tow truck." "Back off," Ethan said, voice low but steady. "You don't have jurisdiction here." The man with the badge smirked, but there was uncertainty now. Leah moved closer to the door, fingers brushing the edge of her phone in her pocket. Max lunged forward with a bark so fierce it sent both men stumbling back. Ethan didn't flinch. He stepped in front of Leah. "Leave. Now." The skinny one raised the stick, but the growl from Max silenced him. A long pause hung in the air. Then, without another word, the men backed away, piled into their sedan, and peeled off down the road. Dust hung in the air where the car had been. Ethan exhaled slowly, turning to Leah. "You okay?" She nodded, then leaned into him, one hand still resting on her belly. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," he said, eyes on the horizon. "But I'm not waiting for them to come back." He reached for his phone, thumb already dialing. "Sheriff's going to want to hear about this. Would you like this story to continue from here?" Stepped forward, voice like steel. "Who the hell are you?" No answer. The man with the baton moved fast, grabbing Leah's arm. Her scream was a knife, short, sharp, cut off by a sickening crack. Her arm twisted unnaturally, her body buckling, one knee hitting the porch. She gasped, clutching her side, eyes wide with shock. Max howled, straining against Leah's weakening grip. Time stopped. The world drained of color, leaving only the high-pitched ring of Ethan's panic. His heart didn't race. It froze. They hurt her. Not a warning. Not a fine over some petty rule. They broke his pregnant wife's arm on their own porch. Ethan's foot shifted, his jaw clenching so hard his teeth ached. The air in his lungs burned. His hand moved to his pocket, fingers brushing his phone, instinct outpacing thought. He raised it to snap a photo of the imposters. The baton swung down, not hard, but enough to send the phone spinning into the hedge. "One more move and you're under arrest," the man snapped, jabbing the stick like a threat. Section 38B. Unauthorized recording of an HOA officer. Ethan's mind reeled. Section 38B? That was nonsense. A lie, spat with such confidence it almost sounded real. Leah was still on the porch, cradling her arm, tears streaming silently, her stomach trembling. Ava, their daughter, reacting to her mother's pain. "You don't touch my wife," Ethan growled, each word heavy, deliberate. "This is our home. You don't belong here." He stepped closer. The taller imposter, badge glinting cheap in the sun, grabbed Ethan's collar, pulling him in. "You didn't submit your lawn treatment form," he hissed. "No mailbox replacement approval. You're out of compliance." Ethan blinked, the absurdity hitting like a slap. Mailbox approval? While Leia's arm was broken, these men spouted fake rules like they held divine power. It wasn't just them. It was the HOA's shadow. The endless letters about grass height and window blinds. The system that let frauds like this act untouchable. Ethan's confusion burned away, replaced by a cold, pulsing hatred, not just for these men, but for the lie they embodied. The taller man turned, popping the sedan's trunk, rummaging through junk. For a moment, Ethan hoped they'd leave, realizing they'd gone too far. But the man straightened, holding plastic zip ties and a cracked toy walkie-talkie radio. No backup, just arrogance. The skinny one approached, bat raised. "Would you like the next part to continue into action, or do you want Ethan to outsmart them?" Swinging lazily. "On your knees," the skinny man said, voice patronizing, like Ethan was a dog to be kicked into submission. Noncompliance and disrespect to an HOA officer. Ethan's hands rose slowly, palms out, not in surrender, but in calculation. "You broke her arm," he said, voice low, eyes locked on the man's. "She's carrying my daughter. You don't even care, do you?" A smirk flickered across the imposter's face. Amusement, not shame. That was the moment everything split. Ethan's hands slipped inside his jacket, fingers closing around the Glock 19 tucked against his ribs. Cool. Heavy. Real. He hadn't planned to need it, not today, not here. It was for late-night drives, remote gas stations, worst-case scenarios. But this was worse. The pistol slid free. His finger stayed off the trigger, disciplined despite the fire in his veins. He didn't aim. Not yet. The weight of it was enough. The imposters froze, doubt flickering in their eyes. Ethan stepped in front of Leia, shielding her. The first shot cracked skyward, a warning carved in thunder. The men flinched. Ethan didn't pause. The second shot tore into the skinny man's thigh, dropping him with a cry, his back clattering to the porch. The third hit the taller one's shoulder, spinning him backward, his cheap badge flashing as he fell. "Down, Leia." Ethan roared. Max lunged, teeth sinking into the skinny man's leg, growls rolling deep as the man screamed, kicking uselessly. Ethan's grip on the Glock stayed steady, mind razor-sharp. He hadn't fired to kill, but to end this. The magazine clicked empty. He lowered the gun and stepped forward, boots crunching gravel. The imposters writhed, clutching their wounds, babbling fake radio codes into a broken toy. "Code 97 Alpha." One wailed, as if help was coming. It wasn't. Ethan stood over them, sun at his back, shadows stretched long. "My wife is pregnant," he said, voice ice. "You'll never hurt anyone like this again." Leia lay on the grass, curled around her belly, a torn shirt tied tight above her broken arm. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with fury and resolve. Ethan knelt beside her, hands gentle, grounding them both. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Max barked at the gate, alerting Ethan to flashing lights. A police Tahoe roared in, tires skidding to a halt. Real officers spilled out, hands on holsters. "Drop the weapon." Face down. Ethan didn't argue. He placed the Glock on the gravel, raised his hands high, and moved slowly. "They're not officers," he said, voice steady. "No badges. No warrant. They attacked my wife. Look at her arm." An officer crouched beside Leia, his face tightening at the sight of her injuries. Another cuffed Ethan, firm but not rough. "She's pregnant," Ethan snapped. They crushed her arm. The officers hesitated. A radio crackled to life from one of their belts. "Those two aren't HOA. No affiliation. No ID. We've had calls about them all week." The cuffs stayed on, but the officer's grip loosened. He met Ethan's eyes, the truth settling into place. "We'll sort this," the officer said. "But you did what you had to." Leia reached out with her good hand, fingers brushing Ethan's. He caught them, held tight, their world cracked but still together. The shadows were lifting. One's wanted in Douglas County, tied to extortion. The cuffs came off. The officer muttered, "We're sorry, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan crouched by Leah, her weak grip anchoring him. "I just protected my family," he said, meeting the officer's eyes. "I'd do it again." 3 weeks later, Ethan stood in a courtroom, the air heavy with the scent of old wood. He wasn't on trial, he was the witness. The imposters sat in jumpsuits, their fake badges gone, looking small under the judge's scalpel-sharp gaze. Doorbell footage showed it all: the assault, Leah's cry, the fake codes. Medical reports confirmed her broken arm and the stress placed on the pregnancy. The prosecutor laid out charges: assault, trespassing, impersonation, with surgical precision. The defense's claim of volunteer confusion crumbled fast. Guilty on all charges, the judge declared, voice unyielding. Ethan held Leah's uninjured hand, her belly round under a soft sweater. Their daughter was due soon. Justice wasn't revenge. It was the line they'd drawn, clear, immovable, ensuring no one would dare cross it again. 2 months later, Ava Caldwell was born on a snowy morning. The world outside was blanketed in silence. Inside, a fire glowed warm, and Max curled by the hearth. Ethan cradled Ava in his arms, her tiny fists curled, her face peaceful. Leah laughed, her eyes bright with joy and relief. Ethan leaned down and whispered to his daughter, "Never let anyone tell you who you can be, even if they wear a uniform." Justice wasn't just the courtroom. It was this home, this child, this moment. Ethan had stood when others might have broken, had been the shield when everything fragile was at risk. That's why his story lingers, not for the gunfire, but for the quiet after, when everything could have been lost but wasn't. Because he said enough and mended what mattered most. Would you like this turned into a short story collection or expanded into a longer piece?